Hello everybody. Well, it's been 4 months since we last met. So much anticipation has built up in that period of the winter testing. But soon, all the questions that you have about Formula One and the competitiveness of the different teams are going to be answered. Well, as you can see, we have a beautiful day here in the Gulf for the first round of the 2006 World Championship. Building very much on the success of the first 2 races here, the organisers have put on a fantastic weekend, helped, it has to be said, by some scintillating track action, particularly in the new qualifying format that we had yesterday. Well, the Middle East is a region with a lot of attention on it at the moment, not always for the right reasons, and this event is very important as it's the top social and sporting occasion of the year for the region. Many sultans, sheikhs, kings and princes are here, and the emphasis is on enjoying a top sporting day out, uniting together for peaceful purposes. As I say, it's the 3rd Bahrain Grand Prix. Both of the previous races have been won by the pole sitter. Last year, it was Fernando Alonso in the Renault. The year before that, Michael Schumacher. And Shuey is back on pole as we look at Fernando Alonso, the reigning world champion. Very much a man who can win this afternoon's Grand Prix alongside Jenson Button, of course, on the grid, the second row of the grid. And either of the 2 Ferraris, Button's Honda and Alonso's Renault, the principal protagonists of this afternoon's race. But it really is open. There's Felipe Massa on his first Grand Prix for Ferrari, qualifying within a few hundredths of a second of the great Michael Schumacher on the front row of the grid. Let's take a look at that grid then. You can see how close it was between the top 3. Button just over a tenth slower, then Alonso. He made a mistake on his qualifying lap, otherwise he probably would have been on the front row of the grid and challenging Schumacher for that pole. Montoya had a quiet qualifying session, but happy to have popped it in 5th place, and the rumours in the paddock that he's carrying a lot of fuel in that car, so he's on a different strategy from the others. We believe that the Ferraris are running quite light, with Alonso a little heavier, Montoya heavier still. There you can see Barrichello in the second Honda. Webber, terrific effort by him with Klein alongside him. They broke into the final top 10, as did Heidfeld, to trouble the top teams. There you can see the rookie, one of 3 rookies in the field, Rosberg in the Williams. Coulthard not having a great time in qualifying with the Red Bull Racing. Now powered, of course, by the Ferrari customer engine. You can see both Toyotas in trouble. 14th Trulli, 17th Ralf Schumacher, and right at the back, Kimi Raikkonen. Last year, one of the contenders for the World Championship, had a suspension failure in the first part of qualifying yesterday, and that's why he is at the back of the grid. And there is Thiago Monteiro. He had a drive shaft problem going to the grid. He has had to go to the spare car, and he will start this race from the pit lane. Well, it's the first time in 5 seasons that Michael Schumacher has not had the number 1 on his car, and he showed yesterday in qualifying just how desperate and determined he is to get it back in what many consider could be his final season in Formula One. There's an awful lot of movement going on behind the scenes in the driver world, with Fernando Alonso committed to McLaren for 2007, and Schumacher has been working so very, very hard in testing throughout the winter, and a lot of people wondering exactly what he's going to do. Jean Todt there said on Thursday, we know almost 100% what's going to happen with drivers in the future, and certainly a lot of people believe that Kimi Raikkonen may have already signed to drive for Ferrari. And the question mark is, where does Michael Schumacher fit into all of that? Will he retire, or will he be continuing for another year? So, as the mechanics clear the grid then, Schumacher just tests his visor. The temperatures rise. It's been a long winter. Here comes the sun is always the motto on everybody's mind as they get on that first plane to the first Grand Prix. And Martin, fabulous atmosphere here in Bahrain. They've done us proud for an opening Grand Prix, haven't they?
Yes, spot on. And we're really expecting a top race here. I think Ferrari are not going to walk away at the front. They're going to be under pressure, particularly from Alonso and Button. I think it should be a race-long fight too. In fact, really, the cars are so close now, the McLarens, Ferraris, Hondas and Renaults, that you don't want a qualifying session to a certain extent that mixes the grid up these days. You want them all in the same place because they're in for such a race. Mind you, it is going to be fun to see if Raikkonen can make his way through the field. It'll be dirty on the inside and sandy on the inside line down into turn 1, where some of the overtaking will be done. It's not the normal racing line, so it's quite a run down there, so they'll be doing best part of 160, 170 miles an hour with cold front tyres, cold brakes, and a good load of fuel on. And so I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a few tears down there, but maybe, just maybe, they'll be well behaved again today and show us that they're a world-class field. But I think today could be won or lost on a simple error going into turn one, or running wide and bumping across a runoff area somewhere. That's how close it could and should be.
Let me tell you a little bit about this Sakhir circuit. We're about 19 miles outside the centre of Manamah, the capital of Bahrain. We're not too far to the south of Kuwait and Iraq. And this track built on wasteland. It's not exactly desert, although there is sand around the area that gets picked up in the wind, but it's not exactly desert. The track is the 3.4 miles long. It has 14 corners on it, and 3 of them are first or second gear hairpins. So along with Montreal, this is the hardest circuit of the year on brakes, and it's something you need to keep an eye on. Watch out for brake dust coming off the wheels of the cars. Incident, we're being informed by race control, involving car number 23 under investigation. That's Yuji Ide, the 31-year-old making his debut in the Super Aguri team. That's effectively a Honda B team, one of 3 new constructors in Formula 1, and it may well be that his team didn't leave the grid
in the 15 seconds.
Exactly.
So they've got to be off the grid 15 seconds before the cars depart, for obvious reasons, to make sure there's not crew and equipment in the way. And it's a new team that have really struggled to even arrive here, and you have to say, you have to take your hat off to them for somehow getting it all together and having 2 cars on the grid this afternoon. I do expect them to be something of a mobile chicane later on, but it seems as if they may get penalised quite early on with a drive-through penalty. But Michael Schumacher then with the clean line, he'll be looking to be into that first corner first. I still think there's a chance they may tactically use Massa in the second Ferrari to keep Alonso and Button at bay until they establish just who's got what fuel on board, and the tyre degradation. How are the tyres going to last over 15 to 20 laps?
Well, Massa has tested alongside Michael Schumacher. He's looked at the lap times. He knows what the 7 times world champion can do, but he's never been this close to him off a start line, and I think he's going to get a shock when he realises just how fast from lights going out, building up the pace over the opening segments of a Grand Prix, just how fast Michael Schumacher is. And it may be that pace that Massa can keep up, which is the defining factor for Alonso and Button, who we believe are carrying more fuel. So a thrilling race in prospect here.
Now, on the support race we did earlier on, the red lights took about 3 seconds to go out from, and I often wonder if they set it through the weekend, and it's worth looking at the other races. The drivers will know they can just about count to 3 and let it go. They're coming over to the right-hand side as late as they can to keep their tyres sand-free as much as they can.
You know the drill, when the 5 lives go off, we'll be racing here 57 laps. And the 2006 Formula 1 World Championship begins now! What about Schumacher? Here he goes, look at Montoya up the middle. Alonso is attacking Massa. He makes him push to one side. Massa's weaved twice now. He can't do that again. Is Alonso going to have a run at him? Massa goes defensive. He was doing that for his team leader, undoubtedly. Button the victim there. He's been passed by Alonso and Montoya, I think. So Jenson Button has made a poor start here, and his teammate, Barrichello, is right behind him.
Williams was spinning back there, I think it was, in the distance, and Massa maintaining second place, but Alonso with a better run out of turn 4, and he is going to steal that position. That is crucial for Renault, and their team will be very happy to see that. That has immediately released Alonso after Michael Schumacher.
So Michael Schumacher leading Alonso up into second place. There's some fun and games going on in the midfield. You can imagine the 2 Toyotas are in the mix. That's Kimi Raikkonen in that chrome McLaren. It's a new paint job this year, and boy doesn't it show. It's very shiny and reflective. A beautiful car to look at in the flesh. It doesn't look too bad on the TV either. This is Liuzzi. He is currently in 12th place. He's done a good start as well, and that is Jacques Villeneuve in the BMW right in front of him. This is the straight line speed of the Rev Limited V2.
He'll have to sweep across, otherwise he'll never make it through turn 12. And good
on the grid, and he's now 21st, so he must have been involved in something there as well. He's gone from 10th to 21st, Nick Heidfeld, in the new BMW team. As down the inside of goes Jenson Button, down the inside of his teammate Rubens Barrichello.
Well, Button's been faster all the way through and possibly got a bit less fuel. Rosberg pits, so has he got a damage? No, he's got no front wing. Rosberg's lost his front wing, so he'll need a new nose. But Barrichello clearly in. That was Button running very wide there. But I think Barrichello letting him through. They're on a different strategy, I'd expect.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Button seems to have had a slightly difficult start. Also into the pits comes Albers in the Midland Formula One car. So a baptism of fire, literally, for Rosberg. He's out now with a new nose cone. But this battle of the Hondas continues. Jensen is now back behind Barrichello.
Yeah, Jensen ran wide in turn 4, and Rubens just swept through again. Now, will he let him go one more time? Michael Schumacher leads from Alonso. Felipe Massa in the second Ferrari. Montoya looking good in 4th. Barrichello and Button with a bit of a dismal first few laps, or first 2 laps it should be said. Fisichella 7th, Webber 8th, Klein 9th, Coulthard still 10th.
Yep, Fisichella has gone up from 9th on the grid into 7th place. No doubt about Jensen Button moving backwards, though. He was 3rd on the grid. He's lost 3 places. We're riding on board with him now. Let's see if we can see what's going on. He's shadowing Barrichello. Up front, though, Michael Schumacher. He's just set the fastest first sector, and he's pushing very, very hard indeed. But Alonso is not letting him get away. His last lap there was about a 10th faster than Michael Schumacher's. Massa still in 3rd place. Montoya is 4th as Jensen goes around the outside of Rubens Barrichello. And these two are fighting for real. No doubt about it. We saw Button go wide, and Barrichello took the opportunity to get through, and Button wants back through again.
EJ has got a drive-through penalty for his mechanics on the grid, as we suspected, but Honda tripping themselves up here. This is not smart action from those two boys at the moment. They really do need to get their heads down and haul themselves up to the back of Montoya instead of squabbling. That's not looking good.
Well, we heard at the start from Ted Kravitz about Giancarlo Fisichella having problems potentially with the engine. Yesterday in qualifying, he didn't have all the power he was expecting in qualifying, and they've changed all the electrical parts on that engine that they're allowed to under the Parc Fermé rules, and it was very much a suck it and see exercise for Fisichella, sending him to the grid if he felt any problems, as he comes under threat here from Christian Klein in the Red Bull Racing. This is the battle for 7th place. They had the spare car on standby for Fisichella, but they've decided to go clearly with the race car. But we need to keep an eye on this car because there was an engine problem yesterday, and here's the start.
Yeah, if you look at Button, they just got away very slowly from the second row, immediately swamped by Montoya, and Alonso getting racy and trying to make his way up the inside of Massa. Didn't stick. And then we see for the first time the two BARs side by side, and there then I think it was the two Williams that actually got into each other. I think it was Rosberg tapping the back of Heidfeld, so Rosberg lost his wing and Heidfeld spun, which has put them back. And now Button's through again. Button through, Klein is through past Fisichella. Klein is flying, he's past Webber, and now Fisichella in the Red Bull. He's absolutely flying, is Christian Klein.
Well, it's been a bit of an enigma, has the Red Bull, throughout the winter. They had terrible problems with this new car with cooling issues. It took them a long time to fix that, and then they've also had problems with incorporating the new V8 engine. They've got an awful lot of vibrations off a V8 engine, more than you do off a V10, and that's caused them some problems as well. They're also incorporating 20 new key staff within Red Bull, including Adrian Newey. But it's flying now, that car. Here comes Button, and this is how he got past Rubens Barrichello, his teammate, into turn 1, the favoured passing zone on this racetrack, and that was pretty clean and clinical. Beautiful.
He's so much later on the brakes than Rubens, and it's such a headwind down the straight that a toe in somebody else's slipstream is paying extra dividends today. But what about Raikkonen? He's up to P12 already, just behind David Coulthard, who slipped back to 11th as Villeneuve has passed him. Raikkonen just scything his way through the field from 22nd to 12th. We're on lap 4.
Those of you just joining us wondering what Raikkonen's doing at the back, it's because he had a suspension failure yesterday in qualifying, so he didn't manage to get it knocked out of the first knockout session, and that's why he was at the back of the grid. But as you say, he's making fantastic progress, 15 seconds behind race leader Michael Schumacher, and that battle with Rubens Barrichello has cost Jensen Button. He's now nearly 9 seconds behind Schumacher.
This is going to upset Coulthard. He's got Liuzzi behind him in what looks very much like the old Red Bull car, and supposedly a detuned V10, and he's driven straight past him down the pit straight, and Kimi's already cleared him easily. So Coulthard's struggling for pace. I suspect he's fueled it up very heavily, and that's going to get tight by the time they get to turn 2. But the Toyota just got nerfed out of the way. Good stuff.
But there was definitely contact there, wasn't there? Coulthard has another look back on the inside of Liuzzi. This is the scrap for 12th place. And once again, Ralf Schumacher in a tight tussle with another competitor, making contact with them. He does that very often, doesn't he?
Yeah. That's going to catch a lot of people's attention. The straight line speed of this V10 car of Liuzzi and Speed, that's supposed to be a bit of a sop to a lower budget team to be able to run an older style engine, and they're absolutely flying down the straight. So Liuzzi then ahead of Coulthard. He's now up to P12, Raikkonen P11. So
as I was saying just a moment ago, that there is potentially an issue there with the engine. Flavio Briatore shakes his head. Fisichella's straight line speeds are down a little bit on the others. Here you can see him coming under pressure now from Mark Webber in the Williams, powered by the Cosworth engine, which I'm told yesterday revved to 20,000 RPM in qualifying. But well, you can see there the graphic of the starts. Raikkonen making up 11 places, Button losing ground. He's currently shown in 5th. Of course, he did go as low as 6th, and he's managed to get himself back up into 5th place. Michael Schumacher then leads on lap 6. Alonso is 2nd, 3rd is Massa, 3 seconds behind his teammate. Montoya is now 7 seconds behind the race leader, and Jenson Button is 5th, 9 seconds behind. Then it's Barrichello in 6th, 12 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. Christian Klien has had a very, very good start to this Grand Prix. He's in 7th place. 8th is Fisichella, but we know he has potentially an engine problem. 9th is Mark Webber in the Williams. 10th is Jacques Villeneuve, who is now coming under intense pressure from the McLaren of Kimi Raikkonen that started this Grand Prix at the back. Liuzzi is 12th. We've seen a little bit of his straight line speed in that Toro Rosso. Coulthard 13th, and Jarno Trulli in 14th place. Another driver making his debut today is Scott Speed. What a great name for a racing driver. The 23-year-old from Manteca, California. Part of the Red Bull Young Driver Search. They've been desperate to find an American driver, and they've found one now in Scott Speed, the first American in Formula One since 1993. Let's see if Ted Kravitz has got any news for us.
Yeah, I'm down at Honda, James, and all the engineers talking to each other on the pit wall, and sporting director Gilbert Ferran putting in his advice as well. Surely telling both drivers to work together to chase Montoya, because of course, James, we think Montoya is lighter than both Honda cars, and they need to keep in touch with him if they've got a chance of passing him in the pit stops. And I think Martin Jensen's closing on Montoya, isn't he?
He is indeed. Jensen's got the gap down to just 0.8 of a second now. We've been hearing all winter that the degradation of the Bridgestones is higher than the Michelin's. They fall away more quickly. There's no signs of it at the moment, and if Michael Schumacher doesn't pit 3 or 4 laps earlier than the Renault, i.e. the Renault's carrying more fuel at this stage of the Grand Prix, then Ferrari very much have the pace required 4 laps further than Michael Schumacher before the first stop.
Yes, just to remind you, those of you who followed us Formula One on F1 ITV with us last year, you will have remembered that we didn't have any pit stops of the type of tyres that they have. They were pretty hard last year because they had to last a whole Grand Prix as well as the qualifying. Now you can change them. You can see the board there telling Ide about his penalty. He's got to do a drive-through. So the tyres are much softer, and that's why, although we've lost 200 horsepower off the engines... Oh! Whoa! As Massa loses it, and very, very, very nearly collects... that would be Alonso, yes. So...
and some big flat spots on his tyres. He'll have to pit, but that's just the sort of thing you're expecting from Massa, unfortunately. He's very quick, but he is erratic, and he shouldn't be making fundamental errors like that. So nearly wiped Alonso out, but that car will be vibrating crazily now with those flat spots. When you start to spin at high speed, it just wears a patch very quickly. Now look, I think he just locked a rear brake, yes, and probably just as he was downshifting and braking very hard, the back end got light, probably a little bit in the dirty air of Alonso's car, and suddenly he's very much steering at the wrong part of the racetrack. Just jammed on the brakes, didn't he? He had to keep it out of the gravel trap. Ooh, Alonso, good piece of driving from him there.
How close to getting his front wing knocked off was Alonso then. That really was quite dramatic, and he definitely had to stamp onto the brakes. He'll have lost some time because of that incident.
Because I think that will have given Massa a pretty serious problem now. So he's still in 3rd place, particularly as Alonso was delayed behind the spinning Massa.
Yep, Alonso lost a second there. The answer to your question, how much did he lose by stamping on the brakes there to avoid Massa? A whole second. Look at Button though, deep on the brakes, and well, just seeing what he could do, I guess, through there. Massa comes into the pits though to change the tyres, as you can right rear corner from the looks of things. They're not quite ready.
Looks like one of the air guns may have failed, but...
Oh yeah, needing the air guns to get the wheel nuts on and off.
Yeah, is that the right rear still waiting to come off? Yes, it is indeed, I believe. Right, they've changed over using the left side wheel gun, we think, and pandemonium in the Ferrari pit. Is that, I think that's the old tyre coming up, indeed it is. So finally the fourth. Reminds you of Eddie Irvine in the Nürburgring of Ferrari, didn't it, where they struggled to find a right rear, but that wasn't a case of finding it, it's a case of just not.
Schumacher leading by 4.5 seconds from Alonso, Montoya third, fourth is Button, fifth
to be safe from Michael, 1 or 2 tenths.
1 or 2 tenths they're looking for, a lap from Alonso. He's second, Montoya third, Button fourth, Barrichello fifth, and Klein currently sixth. Qualified in 7th, but he lost out to Christian Klein, and Alonso running along in 6th place at the moment. There you can see Kimi Raikkonen. He is still stuck behind Jacques Villeneuve, and they are now 24 seconds behind the race leader.
Yeah, Alonso pushing.
Yeah, that was great stuff from Jenson Button, the signal of intent really. Championship. And that very much laid a marker down for Montoya about his intentions. You can see it on board then with Jenson, as Martin was saying. He's been practicing his braking down into that zone and going as deep as he possibly can. The lap before, he got very, very close to the back of Montoya down there. And they love that in the Honda garage. That is... Fisichella, I imagine, battling with Webber for 7th.
And that's the end of it. He's now having to defend himself up at the top of turn 4, and he just sticks it right around the outside. Montoya had a chance to come back at him, but Jenson very brave and very committed there. Montoya professional too, and here we go with the move from a long way back. This is just beautiful. Watch this, look, and Montoya again smart enough. You've got to know who you can do that against. Smart enough to see him coming through, and Button is, but at the moment Michael Schumacher,
200 horsepower less now on these V8 engines compared to the V10s of last year. 5 seconds is the margin between Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso, with a long way to go yet in this 57 lap Grand Prix. Third is Button. He had a scrappy start to the Grand Prix. For those of you just joining us, he was a bit slow off the line in 3rd place. Williams and Red Bull Racing having a fantastic afternoon. Looking back here at Kimi Raikkonen, who started the Grand Prix from the back of the grid. We're on board with Jacques Villeneuve in the BMW, and 9th place Villeneuve, 10th place Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah, Raikkonen went straight up to P11, didn't he? And he's really not got much further. He passed Liuzzi, and that's about it. He's got stuck behind Villeneuve, who himself is a fraction behind Fisichella. And Fisichella's carrying an engine problem, we understand still. But Raikkonen in the dirty air, and he's gone wide as well. That's cost him a lot of time. And you have to say Villeneuve doing a good job there for BMW, just inside the top 10. Michael Schumacher with another new fastest lap on a 1:33.4, but Alonso just about pegged him with a 1:33.6, and Button in 3rd with a 1:33.7. That is just fractions, Ted.
Yeah, I'm down at Renault. It's not actually an engine problem, Martin. It's a problem with one of the electronic engine maps. He can't use the fastest engine map that's available to him because it just makes the engine go haywire like it did in qualifying. This is Fisichella, of course, and he's already lost a place to Mark Webber, and is going to be vulnerable as the race goes on.
Yes, they're probably wishing now they've been searching for that, changing wiring looms, as Ted told you at the beginning of the show. They probably wish they'd have now started from the pit lane in the spare car. So Fisichella's just got to pick a few points up if he can, and this is a BMW side by side with what is David Coulthard. That is Heidfeld passing Coulthard for 12th place.
That's not a bad effort. He was 20th at the end of the first lap, wasn't he? From 10th on the grid, Nick Heidfeld, he went right back, and he's managed to fight his way back up again. So Nick Heidfeld is having a really fighty afternoon here in the BMW. His teammate Jacques Villeneuve is in 9th place. Heidfeld is now up into 12th place ahead of Coulthard and only 7 or 8 seconds behind Villeneuve, having had all of those problems. But at the front, the battle between Michael Schumacher and Alonso, very intense. Here you can see it again. Heidfeld running up the inside of Coulthard and making it stick. This is very much the place to pass. You see Coulthard going side by side with Heidfeld, running a little bit wide on the exit there.
And yeah, he's going to push Coulthard right out onto the marbles. That is beautiful driving from both drivers. Look at that, superb. DC is not going to give that one away, is he? But Heidfeld calmly a second a lap faster if he could only find himself some clear air. We have to assume also they fueled him up a little bit longer as he was right at the back of the field.
Yeah, Raikkonen lapping in the low 1 minute 34s behind Jacques Villeneuve. His teammate Montoya is doing mid 33s, and as you say, Michael Schumacher is lapping in the high 1 minute 32s and took a second, added a second onto the lead over Fernando Alonso on that last lap, lap 14. Montoya a little bit slower. Ferrari mechanics starting to come out into the pit lane. One would presume it must be for Michael Schumacher, and there it is. Right. Michael Schumacher rolls down the pit lane for his first pit stop of the 2006 championship. How many more laps of fuel has Alonso got?
Well, he needs to go 3 or 4 to demonstrate. That's about 10 kilograms of fuel, which is about 4/10 of a second per lap, because that's what Michael's comfortably got over him. There, that's the end of lap 15, and he was 6 seconds clear. So what is it? That's about 4/10. So if Alonso can do another 4 laps, we'll know they really are very, very even on pace. And this is the time then for Alonso to start pumping them in. He's done his fastest lap of the race already on the previous tour. Michael getting out. It always works beautifully, doesn't it, when it's working for you? He's just popped it out in front of his old teammate Rubens Barrichello, and that's key to give himself a nice clear lap. That's worked very nicely for Ferrari.
Certainly has. Michael Schumacher then rejoins in 4th place behind Alonso, Button and Montoya, but in front of the air gun failed. He lost a minute in the pit stop. It's dropped him completely out of contention, and he hasn't really recovered from it psychologically or anything else wise. He is 87 seconds behind the race leader down in 20th place, but Michael Schumacher very much on his way after that pit stop. Alonso now pushing very hard indeed. He's
there, surely Raikkonen's got exactly where he needs to be, and if he can just run Villeneuve out high, and we haven't seen the end result of this, but I'd be very surprised if he doesn't end up finally taking that place away from Villeneuve, and Villeneuve yielding Gremlin's Fisichella, who's in 8th place, and really that's. And Barrichello pits, so Honda not going that much further than Ferrari then. How far can Alonso go? He's going in, so not far enough. Ferrari have got the slightly better pace here this afternoon. That's Fisichella, that one, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to give you about 0.3, 0.2% more front wing, mate. I know it's really difficult, you're doing a great job. Just keep it going, keep pushing hard. We can still get some points.
Well, whatever problems it was. Whatever, apologies for that piece of colourful language from Fisichella, but whatever the problem was with the engine, he's not very happy with it, but they're saying you might even be able to still score some points here this afternoon. That's the computer's prediction of how far Fisichella can go on that fuel load. We saw him coming down the pit lane thinking he's come in now. What about Alonso? I had a feeling Alonso had 3 to 4 laps more fuel in the car than Michael Schumacher, and certainly he will hope that that is the case. He knows how many more laps he's got to go. We don't, of course, as he comes out of the final corner to begin another lap. He's leading this Grand Prix then. Last year's race winner, the world champion Fernando Alonso, leading Jenson Button by 8 seconds. Montoya is 11 seconds behind Alonso, and Michael Schumacher is 19 seconds behind Alonso. And of course Alonso has a much lighter car. Michael Schumacher has just taken on fuel, where Alonso is running down towards an empty tank, so he should be able to pump in some pretty fast lap times right now.
Michael Schumacher's first flying lap with the extra fuel and fresh tyres was a 33.7, only 3/10 slower than Alonso, just a 3/10. This is looking good for Schumacher, because Alonso has picked his pace up, as has Button, but Michael's not doing too badly straight out of the pit, so that fuel load has been balanced out by fresh grip from the tyres. But you have to say, Fisichella giving abuse on the race, there's no point. It's not going to make any difference. And you wouldn't hear Michael Schumacher, Alonso or Raikkonen saying that. He's got to just keep his head calm and focus and make the best of a bad job. All it does is upset your crew and just doesn't buy you any time.
Well, everyone was wondering how competitive Ferrari were going to be going into this first Grand Prix of the season. Most of the teams all tested together at Valencia, Jerez, Barcelona over the early part of the season, January and February, the cold winter tests, and Ferrari tended to stay away. They spent some time quite sure exactly where they were, and I think this weekend we're finding out that Ferrari are very much back in business after a difficult 2005. Jenson Button then dives into the pit lane from second place. He was 8 seconds behind Alonso and 11 in front of Michael Schumacher. Ted Kravitz is in the Honda garage.
Yeah, he's not going to make up the time on Alonso, let's face it, but let's hope it doesn't have a disaster and drop him well behind. Changing wheels again, it's so good to see that, James, I can't believe it. And it's going very well so far. Jenson creeping forward slightly. Alistair Gibson lifts the lollipop and he's away. Good stop.
9.1, a little bit slower than the Ferrari team, but 9/10 of a second slower than the Ferrari team, and that all counts. Drivers have all got to make that time up. There's the graphic you see. They reckon he's going to go 22 laps further into this Grand Prix. So he's clearly on a two-stop strategy, as is Michael Schumacher and quite a few others in this race. We've had a number of cars pitting, make their first stops. Only two of the front runners though. Only Button and Michael Schumacher so far of the front runners has made a stop.
Alonso's got to get in the 132s. He did a 33.5 to Michael Schumacher's 133.6. It's not working out for him. He's actually only 19.5 seconds ahead of him with a stop, and they're obviously getting ready for him. Now, if Michael Schumacher is two-stopping, also the Ferrari then is going to have a longer next stop, but Alonso's got to pick up the pace. Oh, look at all that traffic too.
Yeah, unfortunately for Alonso, he's coming behind two Super Aguris. It's not a problem coming in. Let's hope it is not a problem either coming out. The Super Aguris will be making their first ever Formula One pit stops. A new crew, a couple of turns on the front wing for Alonso, a little bit more downforce then being added. Slick stop by Renault. 8.0, he goes out and he pitted 4 laps after Michael Schumacher.
And he's out in front of the Super Aguris. Now, will he get in front of this traffic? Yes, he will. But he's behind Michael Schumacher, look. So he looks a bit closer, though, doesn't he, than he was. He's made up some ground, but not enough. But there's another chance yet. An incident involving Coulthard and Heidfeld is going to be investigated after the race. That's presumably where Heidfeld bundled DC off the racetrack. But it looks pretty much fair game to me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've got a new initiative in Formula One this year. We've had quite a lot of discussion over the years about stewards and their decisions that they make, and uneven decisions, a bit like referees in football. As we take a look at Fisichella, what's going on here? Making a move on Scott Speed in the Toro Rosso. That's for 13th place. But as we have a look at some action here, the Super Aguri's first pit stop.
Both came in together.
And he ran over the pit crew. So a bad first day back at school, really, for those guys. And the car now parked in front. Some problems there. It looks like they're ready for Takuma Sato, the other car. Well, we've got a new chick out again. Montoya is out in front. Michael Schumacher is second. Alonso's rejoined in third, with Klien in fourth.
Tell you something, Alonso's outlap was a second faster than Michael, 9 seconds, so he got a bit of the 6 seconds back, but not as much as he needed to. And there it is, you can see it for yourself, the 4-second gap.
And not as much as Hope staying out 4 laps longer on the first stint gives up, but he's just set the fastest first sector of anybody in this Grand Prix so far. First man to go underneath 30 seconds for that first sector, and he is flying. We're looking at current race leader Juan Montoya, winner of 3 Grand Prix last season. Hoping to go a little bit better than that this year. Of course, he missed the early part of the season with a mysterious shoulder injury. He missed this Grand Prix in Bahrain. Pedro de la Rosa, the team's test driver, deputised for him here, if you recall. And very spectacular he was too. So it's the first time Montoya's been here since 2004. We're riding on board with Giancarlo Fisichella. Jarno Trulli is in front of us in the Toyota. It's the battle for 12th place.
Alonso just about to smash the fastest race lap. He's faster than anybody's been in the first and second sector. Montoya puts in a 32.7 to go currently.
Hang on. It's a problem for Fisichella here, Martin.
Yeah.
Look at the rev counter.
It's whatever his gremlin was has given up on him. Dread to think what he's going to call it now.
Got a problem, mate. Yeah, you've lost hydraulics, Giancarlo.
Lap 22 of the Bahrain Grand Prix, first round of the 2006 Formula One World Championship, and that was a very slow-moving Giancarlo Fisichella. Looks like coming out of one of those corners there, he just didn't have any power. We knew he had engine problems. He had them yesterday in qualifying, and they thought they would try and change all the electrical parts. Here's a look at Fisichella coming out of that slow turn 10, and when he puts his foot on the gas to accelerate, nothing happens, and everyone flashes past him. And here's the team radio that he heard. Just telling him there that he's lost the hydraulics, and when the hydraulics go on a Formula One car, everything goes. Clutch, gearbox, not just the engine as well. It's a fundamental part of making a Formula One car go. Christian Klein pitting from 6th place, but just before all that, he is responding to Michael Schumacher and closing right up on him. He seems very happy with this new set of tyres, so don't lose sight of the fact that on the track there's a phenomenal battle developing between Michael Schumacher and Alonso as Fisichella comes in to retire. He was the man who had all the bad luck last year, 6 retirements, while Alonso strode serenely on towards the World Championship, and his season has started the same way. Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, they cleared the space in the garage for Giancarlo Fisichella. He did still have that engine problem and the associated software problems with that. The hydraulics failure was another problem on top of that, so miserable day for him.
Well, if you call your car nasty names, that's going to give up on you. Not expecting to be on the ultimate pace, and now we do have a McLaren pitting, which we can assume, I think, is Montoya, who was absolutely blistering on his way in. Fastest first and second sector of anybody. He's leading the race by 8.9 seconds, and the two McLarens have got good raw pace. They might just come into the reckoning as this race moves towards completion, but Alonso has got the gap down now to Michael Schumacher to just 1.3 seconds. He's much happier on this set of tyres, much happier. Schumacher struggling for ultimate pace now. Raikkonen going very well up there in what is now 3rd place too. Webber and Villeneuve pitting. Webber in the Williams Cosworth, Villeneuve in the BMW, both having solid drives this afternoon.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher, as you say, is considerably faster. He's really comfortable in this car now, and he's pushing hard. As you say, the McLarens are definitely a factor. Montoya slots back in around about 6th place. That then is your top 8 at the moment, and you can see that David Coulthard has not made a stop yet, and neither has Kimi Raikkonen, who started at the very back of the grid and is now in 4th place. And I wonder if he's on a one-stop strategy here this afternoon. If that's the case, he's only got one more stop to make, as of all the cars in front of him, and Michael Schumacher is only 7 seconds in front. So Raikkonen's played himself in very well here. Managed to get past Jacques Villeneuve finally after a long period of time stuck behind him. We're riding on board with Alonso. There's a dejected looking Giancarlo Fisichella, and Louise Goodman has some news for us.
Yeah, I'm down at Super Guri. It's all happening down here. I tell you, it started off when Ide came in to refuel. He didn't get any fuel into his car, so he did another lap, came in again. As we saw, came in at exactly the same time as Takuma Sato, and then proceeded to stall the car. They pushed him out of the way, put Sato in, thought they'd refueled him again. The fueling rig malfunctioned, so Sato has had to make a second stop as well, and poor Ide is still sat in the garage trying to get his car going again. It's a bit chaotic and confusing down here, to say the least.
Thanks for that, Louise. Yep, tough in Formula One. That was Rosberg passing Heidfeld that you saw on a replay as Louise was just talking there. And Rosberg, 20 years old, on his Formula One debut, the winner of last year's GP2 Championship, which is the feeder series for Formula One. He is starting reasonably brightly. He was quite strong in first qualifying yesterday, made a mistake in second qualifying, which meant he didn't get himself into the top 10 for the pole position shootout, but well, he had a little bit of an incident at the start of this Grand Prix, had to change his nose cone, and he's fighting his way back up through the field very nicely indeed. Pitted. Montoya 4th, Button 5th, and 6th Coulthard, who also has not pitted in the Red Bull.
Yeah, Alonso just in the dirty air zone, but they're coming up now. He really has got the measure of Michael Schumacher.
But the other one is really not doing all that brilliantly, down in 15th place. Another man who slipped down, Felipe Massa. He had that problem when he had a spin, flat spotted his tyres, and then his pit stop lost him over a minute. He is down in 16th place, and again not making very much progress.
Well, there was 6,000ths of a second between the 2 lap times of Schumacher and Alonso there. Alonso now tucked up in the turbulent air of Michael Schumacher, and I suspect that's as far as he's going to get for a little while. Meanwhile, behind them, Raikkonen is going faster, and the gap down to just 5.6 seconds now. If Raikkonen's on a one-stopper, then they've both got one more stop to do. So Raikkonen really has
5 as Raikkonen comes through there. A 1:32.5 then for Nico Rosberg, pushing very hard indeed, trying to catch Liuzzi, who's currently in 10th place. There you can see Montoya and Jenson Button.
Explain that one if you can. But yeah, little Nico really hooked. Let go, son, at the back, but it doesn't. It really sticking well. And you have to say, without Schumacher in front of him, I think Alonso would be quite a bit faster. Now, this could... Oh, Michael with a lock brake there. He'll just run a little bit wide. He'll compromise him slightly in 2, but nothing like enough to put Alonso in with a chance of having a run at him up at the top of the hill in turn 4.
And there is a...
Pointed Giancarlo Fisichella as well.
Yes, disappointed because obviously yesterday we had a problem already in the qualifying session. We had all night and the morning to fix the problem, but we didn't, unfortunately. When I went out on the formation lap, the engine was okay.
Thanks, Giancarlo.
Well, bad luck for him. So we've got 3 retirements now. Albers in the MF1, Ide in the Aguri, Super Aguri, and Fisichella then in the Renault. 19 runners remaining. Michael Schumacher leads by 0.8 of a second. Raikkonen still yet to stop in 3rd place. Coulthard's doing nicely now, lapping in the 1:33s. He told me he was going to run long. Didn't like to say so because a lot of teams listen to our transmission and feed stuff back to the paddock with their many communication links that they have, but he's running nice and long and looking good with it. Button then, we know how good he is under braking down here. Surely he'll have another lunge. Montoya should be ready for it this time though. Button's passed him once in here and he starts to cover him off, but he can't do it. Nicely done. Jenson gives him a little flick as much to say, hey, don't bother coming round the outside, I'm off. And well, he's mighty down there, isn't he? That's a pleasure to see.
For the second time this afternoon then, Jenson Button passes Juan Montoya for 4th place into turn 1, and that move was a little bit more cagey, needless to say, because Montoya had been stung before and was trying to close off all the opportunities, but nevertheless Button is through into 4th place. Kimi Raikkonen is in front of them in 3rd place. Let's have a quick look at how he did it again. There you can see, just left it right to the last minute, gave himself a little bit of edge to swing out, and through he goes. Well, Button is flying at the front, but what about Rubens Barrichello? I mentioned before that he's lapping in the mid 1:36s off the pace. Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us about Rubens Barrichello?
I'll tell you what his problem is. He's lost 3rd gear, so a gearbox problem. He's still got the other 6 gears in this Honda for the time being, but as we've seen so often in the past, Martin, once one goes, surely it's a matter of time before somebody else goes.
Sorry Ted, I was talking on the cans to the...
There's Webber, 5th, and so Raikkonen slots in behind him. Oh, it's a big fire there in the BMW. Jacques Villeneuve is on fire. Marshall's seems to have got out, hopefully. But anyway, he dashes out of the car, understandably. And that's a fiery exit for Jacques Villeneuve from 10th place.
Shame, good effort there from Villeneuve. Doesn't matter what colour overalls you put him in, he looks a mess, doesn't he? He always wears them so baggy. But looks like the right bank of the V8 has let go heavily. The pistons start heading the valves. You get crankcase pressure. Then the oil starts coming through into the combustion chamber, and that's an oil fire. And then eventually it runs out of oil and just puts itself out. So not too big a drama, really.
lap 32 of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen has made his one and only pit stop of the afternoon. He's gone from 3rd place before the stop down to 6th place behind Mark Webber in the Williams. But one man who was having a good afternoon was Jacques Villeneuve, but a moment ago a very fiery exit for the French Canadian. And look at that.
The right bank of the 2.4 V8, the pistons hits the valves, and you get crankcase pressure. The oil gets put up into the combustion chamber, it burns away, and then it'll put itself out. Jacques, though, deciding he wants out of there very quickly. Michael Schumacher leads by 1.1 seconds. Alonso's decided that in the dirty air he cannot do anything about it. On the same tyres.
And Mark Webber is doing a super job in 5th place at the moment, keeping Montoya honest, who's 4th, just 3 seconds ahead of him. And well, Webber will have Kimi Raikkonen trying to get past him at some point in the near future. Here's Ralf Schumacher lining up his teammate Jarno Trulli into turn 1, goes very deep on the brakes and makes it stick. Ralf Schumacher then up into 15th place.
Yeah, Michael will be pleased to see those two stop squabbling, because he's about to come up and lap them. And he's stretched the lead out slightly from Alonso to 1.3 seconds now. He's edging a half a tenth here and there. Button, and that's the magnitude by which Ralf Schumacher braked later than his teammate, and truly looking pretty submissive and rather disinterested, you have to say. They're struggling for pace in the 1 minute 35s, while the leaders are in the 32s and 33s. So Toyota really not happy out there today. Button 3rd, 21 seconds off the lead, so it looks to me as if his various problems and having to pass cars, the poor start, is going to throw away any chance he had of ultimate victory today, providing Schumacher and Alonso have good reliability. Now, who is this? Which Ferrari is this going to be? It's Massa in. He was first in. Remember, he flat spotted all his tyres, and Schumacher getting caught up there behind the Toyota of Trulli. And look, that's given Alonso a big run at him, but it's not enough. But he's much closer, and will Alonso more easily, but it's put Alonso right on the back of Michael Schumacher. He'll pick up some good slipstream here, but I think Alonso will just hold position and then just nail it as soon as Michael pits. We're pretty sure.
Mate, we need to be close in the next couple of laps.
That's obviously Renault expecting Ferrari to pit Michael Schumacher in the next 2 laps. They're, of course, closely... Oh, he's gone a little bit wide. They're closely timing the refuelling. They know the kind of acceleration pace the car. They've got all sorts of data and information. They know pretty much when Michael Schumacher's going to pit.
Yeah, Schumacher pitted on lap 14 first time round, Alonso on lap 19. And the advantage of coming in afterwards is that you're able to look at what the Ferrari team do, and you can tailor your strategy accordingly. So you'd say
the difficult back marks, because they're ultimately quite quick cars he's been trying to pass, and that's, I think, has cost Alonso a chance to win this race.
Yeah, depends how much longer he can go and how many decent laps he can do with a light car. Remember, Michael Schumacher's got fuel in this car to take him to the finish, so it weighs quite a bit. Alonso's car is running down towards the end. Last time round he stopped 5 laps after Michael Schumacher. We're now 2 laps since Schumacher's stop, and they seem to me to take on a similar amount of fuel. So Alonso has a few laps here, maybe only 1 or 2 more this time round. Has he done enough, or have the back markers cost him the chance of victory? On board again then with the race leader. He's got 23 seconds over Schumacher. Interestingly, Button is out there still, and he will take over the lead from Alonso when Alonso pits. Jenson Button could become a factor in this moment as Alonso exits the pits. So that was the back of Massa's Ferrari you saw as Alonso dived in. This is crucial now for the Renault boys. They've got to be like clockwork here. It'll be a shorter stop, remember, than Ferrari, less fuel going in.
Well, he was 1.3 behind when...
So Jenson Button did briefly lead this Grand Prix, a Grand Prix he told Martin on the grid he was hoping he might be able to win, but really I have to say on the day, although he's shown some reasonable pace, he certainly looks set for a podium, although I'm sure Montoya will have something to say about that. Montoya yet to make his second stop of the afternoon. And Kimi Raikkonen too might have a word or two to say on the subject of Button getting onto the podium Could Raikkonen get himself up there, having started this Grand Prix from the very back of the field? That would tell you something about the championship ahead if he could. But Button certainly could have done without this, coming out of the pit lane.
Well, Button went over the white line on the right-hand side, but I don't think that's a penalty line. It's the left-hand side one you've got to be careful of. And I think he's perfect.
In front of Jenson Button, so if Button wants a podium, he's going to have to pass him on the track, because Raikkonen will not be making another pit stop here this afternoon. Into the pits from 6th place, having, by my reckoning, his best Grand Prix so far, Christian Klien. A fantastic run for him. And he will rejoin as well, so it's all happening here, isn't it? In the second round of pit stops. Alonso getting out in front of Michael Schumacher, and Button losing out to Raikkonen.
Toro Rosso getting it all out of shape in turn 7, Tonio Liuzzi, and that's an unusual. I've not seen a Formula 1.
Jenson Button had a poor start, dropped from 3rd on the grid down to 6th, but managed to fight his way back up into 3rd. He's now battling with Kimi Raikkonen, as you can see. As a result of his second stop, Jenson Button lost out to Kimi Raikkonen, who is one stopping here this afternoon. He had to start from the back of the grid after a problem in qualifying, and has had problems as well with his gearbox, and he is running down in 15th place, not a factor here this afternoon. It's really been recently about Alonso and Michael Schumacher, and they were so very close in the build-up to the second round of pit stops, and when Alonso came out 3 laps after Michael Schumacher's pit stop, he did just enough to get in front of him, and that is why he is in the lead of the Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher is 2nd, Montoya is 3rd at the moment, and we believe he may have to stop again. Raikkonen is 4th, so McLaren 3 and 4 after a troubled practice ahead of Christian Klien.
Yeah, fantastic drive from Rosberg, and particularly the second half of the race. He's the fastest man out there, and he's still doing fastest sectors as well. And who's that moment? That's going to release Klien and possibly even Coulthard then back into a point situation with Red Bull. Red Bull and Williams really close this afternoon. Both cars, all 4 of those cars indeed, looking like they should and could score some points, but somebody's going to be disappointed.
Yeah, and I believe that he feeds back Rosberg in front of Liuzzi and Massa, which means he is in 9th place, just outside of the points, having been 7th before that pit stop. And well, given that, remember, he did have to come into the pits early on to change the nose cone, that did Nico Rosberg, so he's had a fantastic recovery from there. Into the pits comes Juan Pablo Montoya from 3rd place, and that puts Kimi Raikkonen and Jenson Button into a podium battle for 3rd. Montoya in then. McLaren go to work. He needs to get out in front of Mark Webber if he can. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. And then he will be in 5th place. There.
Something getting in his way, or a McLaren that he's had to have a run at. He seemed like he got the legs moderately easily on Montoya, but Raikkonen looks a different story down into turn 1 at the moment.
Yeah, certainly does. That start really did compromise Schumacher and Raikkonen. He feels it's a 4-way battle for this World Championship this year, and he would dearly love to start out with a podium in the first Grand Prix.
Alonso, you know, theoretically should be under a lot of pressure, shouldn't he, with Michael Schumacher bearing down.
And that is P8. 7 seconds to Coulthard. Push hard. You're catching about over a second a lap.
Push hard, you're catching Coulthard at a second a lap.
That's actually 2 seconds he's caught him on that lap. He did a 32.8, still the fastest man on the track, to Coulthard's 34.8. He's going to be up behind. DC should be getting the push sign and the radio call pretty soon, because he's going to lose that World Championship point.
Have a battle for Rosberg to get himself into the points. As you can see, Massa here, another man who had a bad pit stop, lost him a lot of time and dropped him out of contention. That was a pass for 10th place from Felipe Massa.
Massa's pace has not been good though, although he's just popped into the high 1 minute 33s. But isn't it amazing how hard even he struggled to pass the V10, the old style V10 down the straight. But Massa then, dreadful afternoon for the Brazilians really, isn't it? Rubens Barrichello's had no pace at all in the second Honda either. He's down in 15th. Meanwhile, their teammates are 2nd and 4th. Michael Schumacher 2nd, Jenson Button 4th. And here he is in the slipstream on the pit straight, and eventually having to use all of that slipstream and do or die braking effort to get past the Toro Rosso.
So it's still up for grabs at the front. There's Adrian Newey, who is the new technical boss at Red Bull Racing, being paid a very substantial amount of money. He's the man behind McLaren and Williams' multiple world championships. He's going to try and do the same thing for the Red Bull Racing team. Ted Kravitz is down there.
Yeah, I'm watching all these guys on the Red Bull timing stand, as you are. Very worried they are too. They can't do that much for David. All they can do is just keep him informed of the gap to Nico Rosberg. 3 seconds the last lap round, now 1.2 seconds, now Martin 0.2 seconds. Surely this is just a matter of time.
It's a lot less than that, Ted, and in fact Rosberg makes the move out the back of David Coulthard. Coulthard more or less powerless to resist, and Rosberg on his debut gets himself up into the points. Coulthard's fighting back.
Yeah, Rosberg got wide, and Coulthard, he's not quite got enough run down the outside, but he's got a cleaner line, and Rosberg needs to make sure he doesn't outbrake himself down there. Coulthard, there's plenty of space on the exit of turn 4, but it's a right-hander next, and sorry, the little left kink, but then the right-hander, and Rosberg had the racing line, had the better line, and wow, what a brilliant performance from young Rosberg, no doubt about it. DC's not been giving up easy this afternoon. I thought Rosberg had overcooked it on the exit of 2, but he managed to keep enough momentum up the hill, and he's into a point-scoring position.
Such a difficult time to be a rookie in Formula 1, because with the engine situation we have, they've got life on them. You can't do that many laps in practice, but Rosberg has got himself up to speed so quickly. Here it is again, look. Down the inside into turn 1, and it carried on for several corners after, didn't it?
Now, Rosberg's only about 7 seconds behind Klein in the other Red Bull, and he's lapping about 1.5 seconds faster, so he'll be up there too shortly. We'll keep an eye on that. Button still not able to make any advance on Raikkonen for 3rd and 4th. Michael Schumacher has made a 10th up on Alonso, trying to take as little out of that engine as they can get away with. But if Michael Schumacher starts putting on some pace, Alonso's going to have to respond and turn, bit of traffic coming up, and turn the revs up. But at the moment, he appears to have the measure. He doesn't look ragged. He doesn't appear to be making errors or be intimidated by Schumacher behind him. But some squabbling traffic ahead.
Yeah, it's Nick Heidfeld. Just making a move around the one of the Midland F1 cars. Well, Alonso speaking on Friday, saying, I feel much more relaxed in myself, much more confident now, having put a World Championship under my belt, and of course having won those 8 races so far in his career. He just knows how to win, and he feels less pressure, he says, than he did last year. He's expecting an intense fight for the championship here. Alonso seems to have the measure of Michael Schumacher, and he's driving absolutely beautifully.
Yeah, but it cost him some time there going up the inside line, but maybe it'll cost Michael Schumacher time into turn 10. But Michael's really put the hammer down. You notice that he's braking much later on this lap than he was before, because he saw the traffic coming up and he knows it might just give him half a chance. He'll get slightly dirty tyres pulling offline like that. He'll have to touch more caution on the way in then to 11. And Alonso, almost like a video game, at the top of the hill there. And he appears to have enough speed, but Michael's definitely beginning to push harder, no doubt about it.
Into a Grand Prix that's being held in desert heat, and these drivers have been lapping very hard, pulling 4-5G through some of the corners. I tell you that a Formula 1 car accelerates from 0 to 100 in 3.6 seconds and goes from 0 to 100 and then back to a stop in 6.6 seconds. It'll give you some sort of idea what a brutal piece of machinery it is to drive, and what questions it asks of your body. All of these guys, super fit racers, and even after almost 1.5 hours of flat out racing, they're still pushing very, very hard indeed, with just 6 laps to go here in Bahrain. Still a few positions up for grabs then. The lead, Michael Schumacher just 1 second behind Alonso. 3rd place is up for grabs. Button 1 second behind Kimi Raikkonen. Also up for grabs is 7th place, Christian Klein between those two. Elsewhere it's more or less settled, Martin, I think. Montoya 5th and Webber 6th. Both good drives from those guys, but still a bit of racing to do elsewhere.
Yeah, Massa in the Ferrari beginning to catch Coulthard, who's 9th, Massa 10th, and lapping about 1.5 seconds faster and only 3.5 seconds adrift. But there's the gap between the two leaders. And well, Michael Schumacher pulled a couple of tenths off him again in the first sector. Once again, Alonso, he's not been lucky with traffic today, has he? But this is a really big test for Alonso, and the traffic there being extremely correct and kind, and that is the BMW of Nick Heidfeld. What a head-to-head it's been between these two, and Michael looks so close there, doesn't he?
I tell you what, Martin, this is the first round of the new World Championship. Michael is a good bit closer. He's having a run at him.
He's very close.
Alonso knows about it. He's looking into the mirrors. There's Michael. Is he going to have a run? Down the inside? No, he's not. But where did Alonso lose the time from? Was it getting out of the way of the back markers, as you said? Or does he have a little problem creeping in? A 33.8 that last lap. A 33.2 for Michael Schumacher. And Schumacher has turned it up here.
I wonder if Alonso's got a problem with his brakes, you know. He's poor under braking. Very poor under braking at this stage. And he appears to have good corner speed. And Michael's just eating him in the braking zone. Look at that one. Although you do tend to get that effect in hairpins. Alonso's going to have to crank the power up. Michael suddenly has got an advantage over him. Although there was some back marks involved. Yeah, Michael's got the much better car under braking, hasn't he? But he actually cost himself 6/10 on that previous lap by getting in deep and having a half go at Alonso, and then lost a lot of time up the hill. Let's see what he can do up into turn 4. But I do sense, as I say, Alonso a little bit cautious on that brake pedal. Doesn't want to lock a tyre and start giving himself flat spots or making mistakes running wide. If you run wide here, you lose so much time.
Should be okay for traffic till the end.
One way and another, but that's a reassuring. What they're basically saying is he's got clear track ahead in the remaining 4 laps of the Grand Prix, including this lap that they're on now. But Alonso then maybe just pacing himself, but I think he made a slight error onto that last corner when Michael got close to him. I mean,
that was Rod Nelson, Alonso's race engineer, coming on the radio, the man who engineered him to the World Championship last year. And he, along with Pat Simmons, the director of engineering at Renault, one of the veterans from when Michael Schumacher was at that team. It used to be called Benetton, of course, in the mid-1990s. And that experienced camp are now the camp behind Alonso and the success that they're having at the moment. Raikkonen is 18 seconds behind the race leader, which is a remarkable effort considering he started from the back of the grid, carrying a lot more fuel than the front runners. Jenson Button, well, he was third on the grid. He's now 19 seconds behind the race leaders, and that's really a lot to do with getting blocked behind people in pit stops, but also that poor start he made, going from third down to sixth, and he'll really be ruining that. But other than that, his performance, Martin, has been comparable with the front runners, hasn't it, today? The Honda definitely...
Logan Clean, this is the one we were talking about. So he's got enough time, I think, James, at the sort of pace he's got, as long as he can make something of and push immediately through the dirty air coming off the back of the Red Bull Ferrari.
3 laps to go in Sakhir then, and 2 great battles on the racetrack. This is the battle for 7th place between Christian Klein. We're riding on board with Nico Rosberg on his Grand Prix debut, one that he will remember, and I think everybody who loves Formula 1 will remember. And Johnny Herbert scored point here as well, but doesn't quite look close enough to Raikkonen to have a go. Just 2 laps then still to go. We know that Rosberg's got the speed. He's been catching Klein at almost 2 seconds.
Look at Rosberg picking up the slipstream into the headwind, and he's gone for the inside line. He'll do that comfortably now, as long as he just keeps a calm head to the apex. Superb.
The 2 youngest drivers in Formula 1 contesting points positions here for 7th place. Nico Rosberg on his debut goes through. It was a lot about the Cosworth horsepower. That was a good effort, really. That engine has been very promising throughout testing, and a nice slipstream. Klein did his best, but Rosberg wanted.
Sold him a lovely little dummy there and just stuck it up the inside. Ted, we're on the last lap. Have you got some news?
Yeah, but into Renault they say no problems. Fernando Alonso hasn't got anything wrong with his brakes. He was just managing the performance and controlling the race.
Of course he was. That sounds like a lovely bit of PR speak, Ted. Just a few corners to go then for Fernando Alonso to pick up in 2006, where he left off last year in Shanghai with that stunning victory to clinch the Constructors' Championship for Renault, to go on top of his own Drivers' World Championship. But today's also been about the story of the revival of Ferrari, hasn't it, Martin?
It has. We've got 4 teams with very, very close performance and different tyres. 3 of them on Michelin, plus Ferrari, of course. Ferrari have tested here more than any other team. They should come here with a slight advantage, if you think about it, with all of the mileage they've done around here. I said on F1 ITV website, I said it in my Sunday Times column, that in a head-to-head, I now believe, afternoon, they've got that extra little bit of speed.
To say, and I think you may well be right. Out of the final corner comes Fernando Alonso. He wins the first round of the 2006 World Championship. Fernando Alonso.
The desert heat was a bit too much for Michael that time.
Well done, guys. Well done. This race is yours. This race is thanks for the pit stops. So well done. It's your victory, this one. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, beautiful.
What a gracious man.
Mate. Well done. That was a champion's drive.
What a gracious man Fernando Alonso is, handing the victory, dedicating it to the team. As we said at the time, Martin, that pit stop, 1.4 seconds faster than Ferrari's, albeit they were putting less fuel in. It was crucial.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. The team won the race for him, but he kept the car where it needed to be. They fueled it well. He made a couple of errors in qualifying that I think put him slightly on his back foot. And, well, he's sitting there. Won the race, reigning world champion, McLaren contract in his pocket for next year, which is kind of bizarre, isn't it? But anyway, he's got the job done today, and this was what? This was presumably a replay of stuff going on earlier in the race, and that nearly took Alonso out. Didn't Massa getting overexcited into the braking zone, and this was after that great Renault pit stop. Alonso hanging Michael out to dry on the outside of turn 1, and it was just enough, and Ross's right hand says it all.
Ross Brawn, technical director of Ferrari, thought he'd done enough, and that was the moment at which he realised he hadn't. Victory sealed then for Fernando Alonso, but a lot of fantastic drives. Flavio Briatore looks pleased. A team victory today for Renault, thoroughly deserved. And I've got to ask you a really awkward question now, because driver of the day is probably as difficult to choose as I can ever remember it. We've had some stunning performances. Coulthard looks like he's run out of fuel or something on the final lap. You have to consider Alonso soaking up that pressure. You have to consider Michael bringing Ferrari back to the front again after such a dismal year last year. Raikkonen has gone
in GP2, but you have to say that was a brilliant drive from a very, very young man. But Alonso, the reigning world champion, he did everything he had to do. Rosberg's little Rosberg, baby Rosberg, is my driver of the day.
Alonso and Schumacher, the briefest of handshakes between them. Schumacher and Flavio Briatore, how many times do we see them celebrating together on the podium in the Benetton years? Here's a man who finishes on the podium today from the back of the grid, and that will give Schumacher and Alonso something to think about. Michael's smiling. He's only second. He hasn't won this race. And what does that tell you about what's going through his mind today? He's back in business. Yes, Ferrari are back in business, but he's been beaten.
Impressed with the reliability of the cars. I know many of the teams done a lot of tens of thousands of kilometres of testing, but 18 finishes from 22 starters, and that's certainly higher than I expected.
Well, the clapping and cheering had finished by the time Nico Rosberg climbed out of his cockpit. Probably just the bloke who sweeps up there to welcome him back, but he's still the driver of the day in Martin's eyes, and definitely in mine as well. A stunning debut drive from the son of Keke Rosberg, who I imagine is going to have a smile as wise as the Mersey Tunnel.
Alonso, congratulations. Really?
Alonso, congratulations.
What a great race.
I'll give it to Mike.
Mike, yeah. Good, eh? Fernando.
Yes.
Good.
Do everything yourself.
It's the Crown Prince of Bahrain there. Obviously going to be going out onto the podium. Alonso looks pretty cool and collected.
He doesn't realise that's a camera, I think.
All right. Excuse me, gents.
Cheeky monkey.
Yeah, you're right. Michael's got a big smile on his face, hasn't he? I think it is just because Ferrari are very much back in business. I wonder what he was thinking when Valentino Rossi was testing the Ferrari. I saw a picture of him looking at Rossi, and he must have been thinking, well, I don't want you to come in and have all the fun. I don't want you to come to Ferrari. Why should I yield to you? I don't know. I just wonder what's going on in Michael's mind. None of us really know.
None of us do really know. He said he'll make his decision before the summer as to whether or not he's going to continue his career or call it a day. But one thing's for sure, as Jackie Stewart was saying yesterday, he will want to go out on a high. If this is to be his final year in Formula One, he will want it to be peppered with visits to the podium, as many as possible, preferably on the top step. But today the top step denied him by the reigning world champion. Victory number 9 in his career for Fernando Alonso. Michael Schumacher up on the podium for the 143rd time in what has been a truly epic career.
What a podium lineup. Alonso, Michael Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen. Guys who couldn't get...
Determined in the races that follow now, Martin, to show that he deserves a place amongst this elite. That is his challenge in 2006. As you say, today, not able to find a seat. 0.6 of a second behind Raikkonen. 0.6 of a second away from a podium this afternoon.
Well, if you look at it, Raikkonen just 19 seconds behind those winning pair, Alonso and Michael Schumacher, starting from the back of the grid. I bet he was 18 seconds behind at the end of the first lap, and he had to make his way through the field. Plus he got held up for a long time behind Jacques Villeneuve.
Champagne, of course, we're in a Muslim country. This is a drink called Ward, made of fruits. It's still quite fizzy, so it'll look like champagne, but it's non-alcoholic, I can assure you. Well, Renault, Ferrari, McLaren and Honda all look set to make this the most competitive championship for many, many years. Formula One's in good shape. Tell all your friends. It's a must-watch in 2006.